Manila, 1967. A severed torso is found by the roadside. Days later, legs. The head is never found. They call her the Chop Chop Lady. Most people think she's just folklore, but she was real. And she's not the only myth in the Philippines that began with a real crime scene. Tonight, we're opening the vault on 5 Filipino urban legends that sound like horror stories, but feel a lot more like case files. By the end, only one question will matter. Are these ghosts or evidence? The most chilling Filipino legends aren't about mythical monsters. They're about the monsters who walk among us, the ghosts of unsolved crimes, and the dark histories staining real, tangible places. In the Philippines, fear is not entertainment. Fear is inheritance. It passes through families the way names do. Told at night, shared in whispers, never fully explained. For generations, the country has lived under foreign occupation, censorship, deep inequality, and a justice system where closure is a luxury, not a right. When a crime happens, especially against the powerless, it doesn't always become a case. Sometimes it becomes a warning, sometimes it becomes a curse, and sometimes it becomes a monster. Urban legends here aren't created to hide crimes. They're created to smuggle them into public memory. As you watch, ask yourself which parts sound like folklore and which sound like reporting that never made it to print. The first case is the Chop Chop Lady. You've heard the legend. A dismembered woman haunts the streets at night, searching for the rest of herself, a headless figure, a wandering spirit. But before she became a legend, she was a real woman. Lucilla Lalu, 28 years old, a mother, a daughter, a woman working in Manila, just trying to survive. She wasn't found in a grave. She wasn't found lying peacefully in a morgue, waiting for someone to claim her. She was found in pieces, a severed torso dumped by the roadside. Days later, legs, discovered in a different part of the city, and her head never recovered. At that time, the Philippines had no national forensic database. Investigations relied on confessions, public pressure, and political neutrality. 3 things that rarely appear together. Police named suspects, men from her life, but when certain names surfaced, names with influence, statements changed, interviews were withdrawn, and slowly the case dissolved. Not solved, dissolved. To this day, Lucilla is known as the first documented Chop Chop case in the Philippines. Officially unsolved, unofficially unforgettable. The media gave her a nickname, the Chop Chop Lady, and from that moment, her humanity was stripped a second time, not by her killer, but by a culture forced to turn horror into folklore, because justice never found the voice it needed. Once a victim becomes a legend, society remembers the fear, not the person. Lucilla was not a ghost. She was a murder victim, and her legend exists not because she is haunting us, but because justice never stopped haunting her. The second case is the Green Lady of the Laperal house. Baguio City, cold air, pine trees, colonial houses. Ask tourists about its haunted house, and they'll mention the same figure, a woman in a green dress, seen staring from the windows of a home no one lives in anymore. That house has a name, the Laperal House, one of Baguio's grand dames, and it stood through the years when the city fell under heavy occupation. During World War II, Baguio wasn't just a mountain escape. It was seized, fortified. Large reinforced homes became interrogation rooms, makeshift prisons, silent witnesses to things that never made it into official reports. Homes were seized, civilians were interrogated, people disappeared. Nationwide, historians estimate over 1 million Filipino civilians may have died from war-related causes. Executions, starvation, forced labor, and sexual violence that was never documented the way it should have been. After the war, multiple members of the Laperal family died suddenly, tragically, or under circumstances that were never clearly explained. The home stayed standing, but normal life never moved back in. Locals say the woman in green is a ghost searching for peace, but if you listen closer, That woman in green might not just be one person. She may be every woman whose voice never made it into a report, every civilian whose name never entered a ledger, every scream that stayed trapped inside walls that were never allowed to testify. Filipinos didn't invent a ghost to explain fear. They created one to explain the silence. The house is not haunted by a single woman in green. It's haunted by everything that never made it into the records. The third case is the Robinson's Mall snake twin rumor. You're in a fitting room, harsh fluorescent light, a mirror that makes you feel watched. In the 1990s Philippines, millions of teenagers grew up with one belief: you might not be alone in there. As modern malls rose, bright lights, cold air, Western brands, and the comforting illusion that nothing bad could happen inside, another story spread even faster than the commercials. The rumor of a half-human, half-snake supposedly living beneath one of the country's largest malls. People claimed he was born as a secret twin, one normal son raised in public, and one deformed sibling kept underground, fed in secrecy, allowed to choose victims through hidden viewing rooms. Stories spread of dressing rooms where girls went in, but didn't walk out the same way. Some swore there were trapdoors disguised as floor panels. Others insisted the mirrors weren't mirrors at all, but windows, with someone watching from the darkness behind. The rumors grew so loud that TV shows, tabloids, even Sunday lunch tables argued about it. Mall officials denied it. Even the supposed family had to answer questions. But the more it was denied, the more believable it felt. Today people laugh about it, a relic of old Filipino chismis culture. But back then, thousands of teenagers, especially young women, were genuinely afraid to go shopping alone. So why did such an outrageous story survive? Because beneath the absurdity was a very real fear. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, both Philippine agencies and international groups recorded thousands of human trafficking cases involving Filipinos, with women and minors consistently listed as high-risk targets. Mall surveillance was minimal. Staff weren't trained to recognize grooming or coercion. Victim-blaming culture was common. So instead of saying, girls are being targeted and they could disappear without answers, the story shape-shifted into metaphor. Not a half-snake monster, but a predator who looks perfectly human, moves in crowded places, and hides behind systems built for convenience, not safety. Filipinos didn't fear a creature. They feared a reality where someone could vanish, leave no forensic trail, and trigger no meaningful outrage. The fourth case is Mount Makiling, the mountain that takes people. You're halfway up Mount Makiling. The air is thinner. Fog starts to roll in. Your signal drops to zero. No one tells you the rescue infrastructure is underfunded. They tell you, if you disrespect the mountain, Maria Makiling will take you. Almost every Filipino child hears some version of this legend. Some say she's a guardian spirit. Others say she's a jealous protector who punishes those who wander too far, take too much, or fail to return what doesn't belong to them. Stories spread of hikers who felt watched, of footsteps behind them on an empty trail, voices calling their names from somewhere deep in the trees. But behind the folklore is a very real record of disappearances and emergencies spanning decades. Under certain routes, in certain weather, people go missing. Some are found days later, injured, disoriented, not sure how long they were gone. Others are never found at all. The Philippines has over 20,000 square kilometers of mountainous terrain. Many rescue efforts are volunteer-driven, underfunded, and at the mercy of weather that can turn against you in minutes. Mount Makiling in particular is known for trails that loop and double back like a maze, cliffs hidden by foliage and sudden fog, and patches with no signal, no radio, and no backup. It isn't just mystical. It is statistically dangerous. And because full-scale rescue operations have often relied on community efforts instead of fully equipped mountain response units, the survival window after a disappearance can be brutally short. But no parent tucks their child in at night and says, there are environmental, logistical, and emergency infrastructure limitations. They say, the mountain will take you. The legend didn't survive to demonize nature. It survived because fear became the only effective safety protocol. The monster was never Maria Makiling. The monster was everything we didn't build, didn't fund, and didn't prepare for. The fifth case is the Midnight Jeepney. It's after midnight. You're the last passenger in a jeepney. The streetlights get farther apart. The road gets darker. The driver skips your stop. In the Philippines of the 80s and 90s, this is where another legend begins. People warned of a jeepney that prowled after midnight, picking up lone passengers who were never seen again. Some versions said the driver was already dead, still running his route out of habit. Others described strange symbols painted under the seats and a vehicle that refused to stop where it normally would. The details changed from city to city, but the core stayed the same. You board, you disappear, and no one knows enough to start a serious search. To see why this story wouldn't die, you have to step away from the supernatural and into the reality of the time. In the late 80s and 90s, the Philippines was dealing with unregulated transport routes, poorly lit highways and back roads, and documented human trafficking activity. People traveling alone at night, especially women, minors, and workers heading home, were genuinely vulnerable. And that vulnerability was amplified by the lack of reliable emergency communication, centralized missing persons databases, and consistent forensic follow-up. So instead of saying, criminal networks may be operating at night through unmonitored public vehicles, families used a warning that traveled farther than any official advisory. Don't ride alone. A cursed jeepney might take you. Not because they believed in a supernatural vehicle, but because fear travels farther than a police report. The jeepney didn't become the monster by accident. It became the monster because naming the real one could get you killed. Sometimes it's safer to blame a vehicle with no face than a man with a name. Listen carefully. None of these stories exist to replace the truth. They exist to protect it, carry it, keep it alive when official systems would not. When the court fails, folklore becomes the courtroom. When evidence disappears, memory becomes the record. When victims cannot speak, communities speak in metaphor. Filipino horror isn't fiction. It's collective memory, encoded into legend, because plain testimony was not safe, not heard, or not allowed. So, are these ghosts or evidence? Maybe they were never meant to be separated. Maybe this is the only form the truth was allowed to survive. So the next time someone tells you a Filipino ghost story, don't ask, is it real? Ask, who could not tell the real version? And what were they trying to warn us about? Because some monsters are never supernatural. Some monsters sign documents. Some monsters shake hands in daylight. Some monsters own cameras, titles, and businesses. In the Philippines, the most frightening creatures are not the ones without faces, but the ones without consequences. Now it's your turn. Which legend from your town feels less like folklore and more like a case file? Comment your city and the legend name below. And if you want more real crimes hiding behind ghost stories like this video, subscribe to Thrill List, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.